So my mom was a teacher for over 30 years, so naturally I never wanted to be a teacher. Um, like she was, a teacher during that time. You could bring your kid to school. So when I didn't have school, and she had school, she would bring me to school with her. And so, she worked primarily with first graders. At one point, she worked with fifth grade. At another point, she worked with middle school. So I was able to see like how you interact with students at all these different levels. And the one thing I learned from that for sure was that I didn't want to interact with any students at any level, when I was growing up. And so when I went to college, I was a communications major, majored in mass communications, focused on public relations. And so I saw my career, as far as what I was going to do with my life, was going to be something related to public relations or maybe getting into TV, radio, something to that nature. And so that was the plan. And so once I graduated from college, I naturally was going to try to pursue, that path. And so I went to college at Dillon. I went to Dillon University in New Orleans, and so I finished school in 2004. And so I moved from there to Atlanta, and I was in Atlanta for about 10 months, and struggled to find work in Atlanta. I thought it was something wrong with me at that point, because when you get out of school, you think the world is, your oyster, right? You think that you are literally going to take over the world, and you're gonna, you have all this, you've been prepared so well. You have this resume that really means nothing, but you built it up in college, and so you think you're about to get into the real world and kind of show everybody what you know and just take over, but it was the exact opposite. And it was even more of the exact opposite back then, because this was 2004. Well, September 11th had happened just 3 years prior. And so, the economy was really in bad shape, and which meant the job market was really in bad shape too. And so, it was a pretty tough job market for those that were already into the job market with experience. It was even a more struggling job market for those that were coming out of college with pretty much no experience. And so I was a victim of that, just like pretty much everybody else during that time, that was coming out of school during that time. And so I went up there, and so went up to Atlanta, and I ended up having to, in order to make ends meet, take a job as a security guard at an office building. So I did that for about 2 or 3 months. And then eventually I was able to get a job at AT&T, in the customer service department. So that's not obviously what I envisioned my life to be, the path I saw myself going down at that time. But it was definitely better than some options that some people have, because there were people that I had gone to college with, graduated with, that were really, they were really good students, but they were having to take jobs at the mall and different things like that. So it was a tough time for anybody coming out of school during that period. Once I kind of felt my time was over in Atlanta, I ended up moving to Austin, Texas. And figured it was a new place, new opportunity. And so moved to Austin, and kind of ran into the same struggles. I ended up getting a job when I first got to Austin, though, as a salesperson for Yellow Book. I think if you remember what Yellow Book is, like the Yellow Pages, like, back when we used to get phone books, those big, thick phone books, and then they would give you the big yellow one that had all the businesses in it, and they would buy ads and different things. So my job at that time was to try to sell people ads to go into the Yellow Book. And I wasn't good at that at all. Like, I'm not a cold salesman. Like, I'm not the kind of person that can walk into a business and say, hey, here's something that you don't know you want to buy, but I can convince you to buy it. Like, it just wasn't something that I definitely it wasn't a skill set that I had. And so the thing about this particular job, though, is that it was an all commission-based job. So what you sell, you get a percentage of that. And so if you don't sell anything, you don't get any money. But one of the catches was, for about 6 weeks, while they put you through training and while they gave you a chance to kind of a little grace period to go out and try to secure some sales, they paid you a salary for like those 6 weeks. And so I just worked until the salary was over. And then once they stopped paying, I stopped working. And so I was back at square one at that point. And so my mom, you know, she always has been an advocate for going into education. She was like, you know, I think you'll be good at it. And plus there's stability in education. And so I really just didn't want to go down that path. And so I needed to get her off my back though. So I needed her to leave me alone and stop putting pressure on me. And so one way I tried to accomplish that was by, they had Austin ISD, you know, you can, or pretty much any school district, you can sign up to be a substitute teacher. And they'll pay you pretty decent particularly if you have a degree. And so I went to the orientation, you know, just to be able to let her know I went to the orientation. So I went to the orientation, and then as, you know, you're getting through the end, everything sounds okay to some extent. I wasn't really excited about being a substitute teacher and knowing how kids were going to treat me, because I remember when we used to get a sub when I was in school. There's a certain way you treat the substitute teacher. And so it's kind of like I didn't, like, even just out of fear of just the karma of some of the ways I behaved when we had a sub when I was a kid, I was in fear of that. But also they told me they would call you around, like that. This is the part that pretty much where I never ended up doing, is when they were like, yeah, we'll call you about like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, something like that, and we'll let you know what jobs have available. And these jobs could be anywhere at any school in the city, and we'll let you know. I'm like, there's no way. I'm not waking up every day with uncertainty to potentially drive across the city to do this, to do that. So, and especially for the pay, because at that point I was just like, well, I was doing a lot of freelance work. I started like a little freelance business to where I was doing web design, I was doing graphic design, I was doing photography. I was doing a lot of just using my skill sets to be able to just, you know, make ends meet. And you know, so I was like, that's something, for one, I enjoy it, and then two, it's kind of something I have some control over, and it's some level of stability. So I kind of just said I'm gonna focus on doing this, and obviously my mom didn't approve of that, but it at least, you know, I at least had signed up to go and do it, which ended up turning out in the long run to be a good thing.